Hi, Ron here. Got a bit of a cold, so bear with me. Want to use the examples that I used in the preview video, only I'll expand them a little more and give you the rules and show you more lines and stuff like that. So here if you remember, we had a TFU 7, which is the Russell, and we had a line up here and it said, okay, well, prices went up to the line, so that was the reversal point. Let's take a look. Right here it was, only I didn't show you the weekly, I only showed you the daily. And that's because I'm using a weekly line. Now, it can be any kind of a 2P line, R2P, regular 2P, high 2P, low 2P, whatever. Any kind of a 2P line, but it must be on the weekly. Okay? And then prices must really show some decent respect to that line. Personally, I used to put the orders in right there and sell and then sit on pens and needles and wait for it to reverse. And sometimes it would just say, oh, no, I'm going higher, boom, and surprise. But what I do now is I simply wait for a down move that's substantial and then wait for a correction that's significant. That doesn't make it anywhere near this line. Okay, and then I get in and take the ride down. So we're going to I don't just use a 2P line. Let me give you a little background on this. What Andrews did was he would use the weekly trend lines, and they can be an R2P, regular 2P, whatever. And then he would combine that with the EP, that 5-point reversal, Tom's favorite signal, uh, reverse point wave, whatever you want to call it, it's always the same thing. So we're going to take a look at that, and you're going to see how incredible that really is and how that's helped me make a lot of money. So let me show you how that works. Okay. So let's go back to IWM. As I looked, IWM and the Russell are pretty much the same. Only one's a futures contract, one's a stock. But here's your 2P line, okay? And so here you have your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, you draw a line from here to there and notice that, hey, it's upslope we go time. That's all we're really looking for. And draw a line from here to here and notice that it's downslope we go time. This one's downslope, this one's upslope. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What about all these little pivots in between here? Don't care, doesn't matter, not interested. Okay? You're going to have those sometimes. That's just the way it is. We're going to see lots and lots more examples of this. Right? Okay, so much for TF. Let's take TFZ. Let's take a look right now. What do we have right now? Here's your weekly. Here's your weekly 2P line. In this case, it conveniently winds up being the upper 2P line, so to speak, which it often isn't. Okay, and as you can see here, let's look at it on a daily chart. It's daily. You're looking at the daily chart is fairly useless. There's no 5-point reversal here. Okay. But if you draw a line from, this is a pivot. This is a pivot. It's a min zero pivot, but nevertheless it's a pivot. So you draw a line from here to here. Notice it's down sloping. Here, here, here. Nicely upsloping. Okay, there you have it. That's what I use to call the high here in the TF. But what I did was, in order to put on an actual trade, remember that it bounced through this thing several times, and sometimes it bounces through and then keeps on going. So I waited until it showed me enough evidence that it's got a good probability of going down. And here's where I am. Okay. Let's take a look at Mexico. Okay. Mexican peso, real simple. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look. You got to look at, I mean, this is, it's easy to screw up in this, so you got to do this carefully. Look at the high here, 55.63, 55.63. So you can say that this is a high, this is a low, this is a high. Okay, let's take, what was this high here? 556. Okay, so this was it. Okay, so in our weekly 2P line is this line here. Let's take a look. Boom, boom, boom. Coincidentally happened to be the one on top there. It usually isn't. Just in this demonstration, I guess it is. I don't know. Daily. So what happened was, in actual trading, I wound up going, let's see where I got short. Doesn't say, can't. 54.32. Let's take a look. Where is that? It's about here. So as you can see, prices came down. After that, they went up sideways a while, and boom, I let everybody know, oh, Mexico was the subject line. Wound up going short. There we are. What happened with the Canadian dollar? Same thing. Look at this. Here's your daily. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You got to look at this closely. Notice the low here is 79.48, and the low here is 79.49 and a half. See how subtle that is? So you can draw your line, down-sloping line here, your upsloping line here, because this guy's higher than this guy's here, right? Toot, 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 toot. And boom, there you go. Notice I used a different line here. Well, let's see what happens. Once again, when these top things, well, we're using different points. We have the high, weekly, and we have a low pivot here that we're using. Okay, had we just used this line here and up we go like we did in the other ones, wouldn't have come near. Okay, so you need to know that you need to be a bit creative in finding a reversal point. And that's one of the advantages here, is that in the Canadian, if you remember, where was I? Ah, here we go. Right around here is when I let everybody know, oh, Canada, and it's down we went time. Let's take a look at this on an 8-hour chart, see a little better. 8-hour chart simply means each bar is 8 hours. And so as you can see, prices hit the reversal line, and then several days later, tried to come back up, did a sideways move. And that's where I wound up taking the ride down. Okay? As you can see, took profits. Okay, so let's look at coffee. Okay, now if you remember, earlier this week I sent out a chart with coffee with the Babson reversal line on it, and we showed how prices were over here, and I think price was up to about here. There's a 15-minute chart or something. Notice it went down, boom, bounced off, went up a little ways, and came back down, and now up we go time. Okay, now personally, I'm not long yet, but then that's me. You might, that's me at this point in time. There's a certain entry that I use that waits a little bit until it's gone up a ways and then comes back down for me to enter. The price that I pay is that I miss out on some trades that get me in real early. And sometimes I miss out on trades altogether because they just don't come back enough. It happens. That's the way it goes. Where's my 5 points here? Real easy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You see that? Nice and clean. Let's take a look at the low here. Low here is 126.9. Low here is a little lower, 126.75. Okay, this one, notice this low here is higher, so you have a min zero pivot and down she went. Okay, simple as that. Nothing fancy. Sometimes, we luck out and they just right away do this reversal on this line. It's absolutely beautiful, and sometimes they don't. So something we need to live with. So we're looking for, on the daily charts, the 5-point reversal, also known as EP, Tom's favorite, yada, yada, yada. Does this work in other time frames? The answer is I have seen correction patterns in the coffee that were 5-point reversals in the 4-hour. And what it did was, let's see if I can catch this thing again. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. What happened was the price was in a nice little correction pattern. Let's see. No, I don't have enough data. Okay. I have found that I've been able to use the 4-hour for the 5-point pattern when I'm in a correction. Okay. So, it was like, hey, this is obviously a correction pattern. However, I also used the weekly for the Babson reversal line. Okay? There's just something magical about the weekly. Let me tell you what I think is magical about the weekly. Daily charts are not as accurate as weekly charts. How could that be? Real easy. Daily charts, you have holidays, days with no data. Weekly charts are always that. They always include the holiday, days where you have no data. So your weekly charts are the most accurate. All right. So looking for weekly charts for the reversal line, and it can pretty much, I mainly look for daily charts for the 5-point pattern. Let's take a look at Australian dollar. We've got it going on right now. So here's your daily chart, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Down sloping line, up sloping line. Goes way, way down. First I thought it was this guy here. Guess what? I was wrong. And now we're over here. This is possibly 1. Personally, I'll wait until it goes up a ways and then comes down a bit, gives me a nice correction pattern, and then away I go. Okay. So this is, what is this thing useful? Well, besides, what I do, there's other ways it's useful. When you have a pattern like this and you get to the Babson reversal point, if you happen to be short, might be a good time to take profits. Please consider that. Okay? Okay, so let's look at some more patterns. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Can I change the dimensions on this? Well, maybe not. So, let me see what I can do. Yep. Okay, that's a lot better. Okay, So in this one here, what chart is this? This is the Mexican peso. Now, the Mexican peso in the MXN thing is inverted to trading the Mexican peso futures contract. So looking closely at this, this is your daily chart. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here was your low. And also, once again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was your low. Now, when you have the 3, 4 in the pattern, that's also a weekly pivot, a weekly EP, a weekly 5-point reversal pattern, whatever you want to call it. Look for the move to be a long one time-wise. Okay. So your weeklies generally result in moves that are months that you can measure in monthly bars. When you have a pattern just on the daily, then look for patterns that you can measure on the weekly bars. So weekly pattern, so in other words, like this one here, might only come out to 3, 4, 5 weeks, and this one here would come out to 3, 4, 5 months. Okay, because this one's also on the weekly bars. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so here's your weekly 2P. Boom, 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 boom. All right. So this one winds up as your Babson reversal line. Okay. And since this is obviously a correction, it interestingly enough used the reverse 2P. Okay. This is all the same stuff. Okay, so here's this pivot here is this pivot here. And this pivot here is this guy here. Let's look at this as real world, real money. Okay. Okay, so here was your 5 in the futures. Here's where it peaked through. All right, these are daily bars. And so then I personally let it go down a ways and came back up and wound up going short. Now, so remember that the futures contract is inverted to the regular Mexican peso chart. Okay. Okay, let's look at this and let's look at a whole bunch more. Okay. So what do we have here? We have the beautiful hogs chart. Here we go. This is July hogs. So here you have your 5-point pattern. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and then here you have a high pivot, and here you have a low pivot. These were your weekly pivots. I'm only showing this on a daily chart, but trust me, this is a weekly pivot. This is a weekly pivot. And wound up reversing perfectly here. What's the catch? 2 of them. One is you got to be pretty good at finding these 5-point reversal patterns. They can be tricky. Be careful. If you're not sure, send it to me or Matthew, and we'll take a look at it. Background on Matthew, about 30 years ago, he worked for me, physically in my office, all that kind of stuff. We did headhunting together. He's been out on his own for the last 25 or so years, actually over 25 years. So, because I've been living in this house 25 years, so that's how I know. Okay, so I've known him a long time. Let's take a look at another pattern. This is wheat, and we can see here that the wheat reversed at an R2P line. Okay. And we can see that's the weekly pattern. Here's the daily pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Simple as that. I'm not short the wheat. However, I am now looking for an entry point so I can go short, because it's, as far as I'm concerned, this is good enough for me so that I can take a short position in this. And I do want you to know that sometimes this 5-point reversal pattern will be visually available on the 4-hour, but I'm not telling you to use the 4-hour. I'm telling you to use the daily with the weekly lines. And I have found that the 4-hour is successful, even though I don't have enough instances in my tests, with the weekly lines. Something magical about weekly lines. Okay, here we go. Here, what do we have here? We have the Australian dollar, which I already showed you in the other chart thing. And which one is this? This is also Australian dollar. And notice now we have the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. Now, so this is where we are now in real time. And so I will wind up waiting a while to see if I want to enter. And there's, most of the time, when people have a system or method of some sort, they modify it in some way in order to make it theirs and something comfortable for them and all that kind of stuff. I encourage you to do that. However, here's the catch. I want you to keep number 1 for this system. Number 1, which is the 5-point reversal. And number 2, which is the weekly 2P line. Okay. You keep those two things going, and then you can add your own stuff. You can add your own entry. You know, things that you know work. Oh, this always works for me. It has worked for years, yada, yada, yada. Okay, own entries and own exits. This way, it's yours. And people love modifying this stuff. Please do not modify 1 and 2. Modify 3 and 4, the entry and exit. Okay? Now, what do we have here? KC, here's coffee. Okay, this is the chart I sent out the other day, pretty much. Okay, so here we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, what I said in the preview to this thing here, quasi-advertisement, was that when prices were here, 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 my pattern, my thing number 1, my 5-point pattern was not true. That's true because it had to go below this point here in order for me to say, okay, my 5-point pattern is true. Right? So when prices were here, I said, well, that's nice, but we're not there yet. We don't have a 5-point pattern yet. I'm not going to even bother looking for a reverse 2P line until prices went down here, or any kind of a 2P line. Coffee, coffee, coffee. Huh. Okay, this is, I showed you the reversal pattern and the daily chart just now. Well, here's the weekly chart, which shows you which lines I'm using. I'm using a reverse 2P line for my weekly charts. Okay. So we're clear. Coffee, this is a daily chart here. Yeah. If prices are going up like this here in this pattern, if I want to use that 4-hour combined with the weekly reversal line, I'm going to look for a nice reversal pattern like this here because it looks like, gee, it looks like the trend is down. Same with here. Okay. How do we know that? Well, a couple things. One is, look at this here. Andrews would draw a trend line underneath here and say, well, the trend went down, boom, broke this, and down we go some more. Something else. Andrews, at at the seminar said something that was interesting. He said when you have an EP, one of the things you always draw is your 0-4 line. So you'd pick this 4 here. Let's take a look. It would probably be this line here and this line here would probably be your 0-4 line because we're using the daily pivots, remember? Okay, and then you draw your action and your reaction. And if this, and you draw, I personally like drawing 2 sets. I would draw this one here because this one's make my reaction line go a little further. And then what you do is you draw your action reaction line. Remember the Babson profit ladder and all that stuff. Well, he suggested that when prices reverse, they will reverse exactly at a rung on the Babson profit ladder. And that was incredibly uncanny. Okay, that's what he said. What I have found is that the easy way to do that is to only look at the R1. So if you remember, I had a video out where I said, okay, JR1 or something like I called it. And if you're an expanded course member, I can send you a link and you can see it again. And basically, prices go to that when you have that EP pattern and you draw your line from here to here, right? Through, and then your action, then your reaction, which is up there somewhere. You watch for prices going to that R1 line and possibly reversing there. Okay. When they do, it typically winds up being the end of the correction, which is absolutely phenomenal because that's a super precision trade. Okay, moving on. What do we have here? We have gold. Okay. Now, if you remember several months ago, this is a weekly chart. And look at this weekly chart here. I wound up, as I looked at this weekly chart, I can go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, but I also happen to have things going on the daily, and if you notice, prices went up to the down-sloping line on the weekly chart and reversed right at it, right? Now, this is what it looked like on the daily. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right? Now, remember, what's interesting about this here is this weekly chart also has different ones, but it has the 5-point reversal. Okay? So this guy wound up going down. Okay, and after they went up, I wound up going short. I think I also wound up going short up here, but that was after they came down a day or 2 or 3, like right over here. And then boom, let's get in there and sell. And down she went. Rather than just, hey, they hit a weekly 2P line and sell there. I got a little too freaky for me and my blood pressure. So here's sugar. Okay, now this is a very recent chart. Yeah, if you remember the group, I sent out a thing, said blink left, turn right. Okay, well, if you draw a line from this high 2P here and this high 2P here, you'd see that prices briefly for one day on a daily chart went through this line and reversed. Okay, blink left, turn right. But if you look at it closely, you'd see that they also reversed at a weekly 2P line of sorts, right? This is some kind of 2P line. And let's take a look at the daily. Notice I have those 3 4s in there. That means I have my 5-point pattern. So here I have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? So prices came down on the daily, came back up here, gave me a nice entry area, and down we go. What do we have here? 6C, that's Canadian dollar. I already went over Canadian dollar with you. But just in case, here you have here we have a low pivot, high pivot, high pivot. Now, when we have these kind of funky pivots we're using, it's very often a correction pattern. the end of a correction here. Okay, so let's take a look. That's your weekly. And here, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This was just a tad lower. Okay. If you remember, when we were right over here, is when this is a daily chart. It was about a week before I left. I said, "Oh, Canada," in the subject line of my email, and mentioning the Canadian dollar, and down we go. What is this one here? Live cattle. Nice live cattle chart. This is December. So here we have our 5, 4, 3, 2. We'll have to look inside to see the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So down here we have our reversal. And if we come down here a ways, I may wind up having a nice little buy signal. And that's really all I got for you here. This is really very simple, very straightforward, and it's absolutely wonderful. You'll get in futures, in 30 or so futures contracts, you'll get what will you get? You'll get 10 to 30 trades a year. Just depends. Okay, using daily and weekly. If you remember that when you have a reversal on the daily charts, when you have a 5-point on the daily charts, you're looking for something that goes at least 3 to 5, 7 or so weeks. And if you see that on the weekly chart, you see the 5-point reversal on the weekly chart, you have the similar type thing going on in the on the weekly bars. Okay, so it winds up taking longer. Let's talk about stocks a little bit. Stocks are a little different. Here was IPAY. This one was nice. Okay, so look at this here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, comes back down. And here's your weekly 2P line. Excuse the thing here, I'm going to cough. What a throat thing I've got. So, gave me a real nice entry situation here. And the thing about stocks is, remember, you can sometimes you'll find a lot of these patterns in the 5-point reversal on the weekly pattern, and I kind of like those, but you always have to use the weekly 2P line. Okay. So, and in the indices, it can get a little bit tricky, meaning that, for example, in this TF pattern here, everything was really perfect in terms of the 2P line in the futures, but it wasn't as perfect in the futures on the 5-point. Because if you look at this using standard min theory, well, wait a minute. No, this one was perfect. Okay. No, here, 5, 4, 3 is high, so this low is not counted. This low is, and this one was all right. It gets intricate using min 0 pivots. So much easier using min 1s. But anyway, this was a valid signal. But other times, you may just want to flip over to the to the cash portion of the particular indice you're watching. So if you're watching ES, you're looking at SPY. If you're looking at the Russell, you're looking at IWM. And you'll get a slightly different picture in using those guys. Let's take a look. Well, that was nice. Yeah, I mean, and it's pretty damn good. So here you have 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and let's look at weekly. Here's your weekly, and notice that this was a daily. We found the pattern on the daily chart, so we went down for a good 4 weeks. This is about 7-8% down move. If you catch 3, 4, 5% of it, that's in futures money. That's pretty damn good. So that can be some good. That's a good chunk of change. So that's how she works. And notice now in IWM, we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's a bit too far. That's pretty close. Well, we've got it in the TF, and that's what's important to me. Ah, there we go. That's not a good pivot. See, it's a nice outside day, but which might be valid, but there we go. There we go. That's a cute one. Let's see. This should be lower. Or let's see. Low is 33.66. 33.68 is the next one. So this one is a valid low pivot. Let's take a look here. Yeah. And so we've got it here. And our guess is that the Russell has made its high. So we shall see. Anyway, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time.